everyone. Welcome or welcome back. If you're new here, my name's Nina, and here at this channel we talk all about mental health, personal development, and understanding our own psychology. And today we're going to be talking about how to make our life feel less chaotic. I think this is something that so many of us struggle with, and it's something that definitely affected me throughout my entire adult life until a few years ago. So I think it's a very important topic. So after living for years myself with a completely chaotic lifestyle, I finally figured out that I had really boxed myself into a life that was not only too busy to enjoy and totally overwhelming, but also that I never had time to ever recharge or to evaluate how my life was actually going. And because of this, I never really realized how many aspects of my life were not serving me, or really understood that I could make changes that would improve how I was feeling, because I never slowed down my pace. And so what ended up happening is that my life felt completely out of control all of the time. And I know I am not alone in this, because this is something that I hear people mention over and over and over. They feel like their life is kind of running without them, or that there's so many things to do that they're not even really enjoying life anymore. They're just trying to get through everything they need to get through without really having a life that feels satisfying or fulfilling. What happens far too often with people who lead chaotic lifestyles is that they will continue to do so until something really forces them to stop, because they never are able to back up and look at that big picture. So they don't even really realize that they are on this hamster wheel. So either they experience burnout, or they have challenges to their mental or physical health, or have a breakdown, or they start to realize that things are slipping through the cracks and they can't possibly keep up with everything they are supposed to. And sometimes it's only then, when the epiphany comes, that something has to change, that this is not sustainable. But regardless of how we come to this conclusion, if and when we do come to the conclusion, it is so important that we really listen to and honor our body and realize that changes do need to be made. And it's when we make these changes that we can have a life that seems much less chaotic, much more in control and manageable, and certainly much more enjoyable. So today I wanted to talk about 10 effective strategies that really do help our life to seem a lot less chaotic. Now, the first thing that we need to do is to write it all down. Before we can make any changes, we have to perform a life audit. We need to be able to identify the aspects of our life that are causing this overwhelm. We also need to kind of figure out where we are spending all of our time, because even if we are doing activities that in and of themselves are not overwhelming or chaotic, when our life is so stuffed that we don't have any time to breathe, of course it's going to contribute to that feeling of chaos. So this part of the process simply involves tracking our life. So for at least 2 or 3 days, we want to write absolutely everything down, every place we have to go, everything that we need to do, all of our obligations, no matter how insignificant they may seem. And this is how we really start to gain clarity about what our life consists of, because a lot of times we are so mindlessly going through everything that we really don't have that insight. So tracking everything really puts it in black and white. Now, it's important to note here that not all chaos is by choice. So we may certainly identify different facets of our life that we are not going to be able to cut out in any way, shape, or form. And that is totally fine. Still write them down, because there are strategies that we can use to make these activities or aspects of our life feel less chaotic. So the important thing here is that every single thing that happens in our life goes down on the paper. The second thing we need to do is to analyze our list. And this is where we need to get really real with ourselves about everything that we wrote down, because it is highly likely that if we feel that our life is chaotic, that modifications need to be made, or even some cuts need to be made. And I know it can feel so uncomfortable to think about that, especially if we are people that enjoy living in the comfort zone, or if we've had the same routine or schedule for years and years and years. We have to keep in mind that our current schedule is creating creating suffering for us. So it is important to start to consider changes. We need to be able to sit down and figure out if there are any non-obligations that simply are not worth the time and the energy that we are currently putting into them. Because we have to remember that time and energy are currencies. They are not infinite. They are very, very, very finite. And if we continue to try to give time and energy to everything, there's going to be nothing left over, and our life is always going to feel chaotic. And this is something that I so wish my past self could have understood, because I just didn't have the emotional or energetic bandwidth to be able to successfully accomplish all the millions of things that I was trying to stuff in my life. I was exhausted both mentally and physically, and when that happens to us, we are not able to perform the tasks that we want to up to our standards, and so we then have to spend all this emotional energy trying to fix everything. So it's really just a losing battle. So if we don't want this vicious, terrible cycle to continue, we need to look at our list and analyze it and ask ourselves some important questions, such as, is everything I am doing necessary? Does everything I do specifically need to be done by me? Are there things that I am doing out of habit or guilt that really no longer serve me or bring me joy? Are all of these activities in line with my current goals or values? Could any of these tasks be simplified or reduced? Is there anything in my schedule that isn't worth the time or stress it creates? Have I outgrown any of the activities I am dedicating time or energy to? And do I have any habits that will create future chaos? These are the types of questions that we need to begin to ask ourselves so that we can get a better idea of what things in our current schedule we need to make modifications to, or maybe even eventually let go of. Because so many of us have activities in our life that really do nothing but create mental clutter. So we need to go through the list and find those aspects of our life that are really just wasting our time at this point, and cutting into the time and energy that we need to be able to dedicate to the things that we must do and still have time to actually enjoy our lives. The third thing that we can do is to create daily to-do lists. So here we're just trying to map out our time and our priorities. A lot of times we can feel that our life is chaotic because not only do we have a lot of things to accomplish and maybe not a lot of time, but we're also trying to remember everything, and we're not giving ourselves clear direction about what things are the most important. These types of lists can be so beneficial because not only can they help us to organize our tasks, but they make us feel a lot more grounded. They help us to become more mentally focused, and they also give us that sense that we are in control and that all the things that we have to do are actually manageable. And in fact, research has shown us that this technique not only reduces stress and anxiety, but it also creates accountability, because now we have it in black and white. These are the things that we must accomplish. So it's much more likely that we are actually going to get things done. And so many times that feeling of chaos that we have in our life and that mental clutter comes from the fact that there are things hanging over our head that we need to do that we haven't accomplished. I also find personally that it's very satisfying to cross things off of a to-do list. We really feel like, we have accomplished something, that we are getting things done, and that contributes to that feeling of control as well. And I think, again, that it helps really control that cycle of procrastination, because we have that targeted list and we just tend to get things done in a lot more efficient of a manner. The fourth thing that we can do is to declutter our space. Now, if you've been subscribed to this channel for a while, you know that this is something I am very passionate about. I talk often about how we can experience so many mental health benefits from decluttering, and this is definitely one of them. In fact, science really shows us that in many cases, outer order creates inner calm. When our external environment is tranquil and peaceful, we tend to see that being mirrored in our our own life as well. Now, even if we think we are used to living in our cluttered or messy home, it actually still does contribute to feelings of overwhelm, and it makes it very, very difficult to relax. Now, if you feel like your house is so messy that you don't even know where you could possibly begin, I think it's the most beneficial to begin with your work areas and your bedroom. Now, one of these areas is very important for productivity and for concentration, and the other one is really important for our mental health. So these are the areas that I would start with, but when we do declutter our space and we have a nice, clean external environment, we are definitely going to feel like our life is a lot less chaotic. The fifth thing that we can do is to make time for things we love. Now, I know this one can seem almost counterintuitive, especially when we have a lot of tasks and obligations, but in reality, when we are always ignoring our personal interests and our hobbies, we tend to get really, really burnt out, and it leads to a lot of life dissatisfaction. Of course, we're going to feel stressed out and even angry if we're never doing anything fun. But if we actually take time to do things that we do enjoy, we're going to find that we relax and that we are able to recharge and get into a flow state, which makes us a lot more mentally prepared to handle the things in our life that are not enjoyable. Now, I have been working on reducing stress and chaos in my life for years, but it was only very recently that I made a firm commitment to myself to make time daily for two things that I enjoy immensely, which is going outside and running and playing guitar. Now, I love to be outdoors, I love to exercise, and guitar has been one of my biggest passions since I was 15. Yet I really was not making time for these activities on a daily basis, and it was definitely affecting my happiness level and my life satisfaction overall. So when I was able to make this change, I saw a huge positive difference in my life. And it was just this great personal reminder that taking time for ourselves really is not selfish. In fact, it tends to greatly benefit the people that we care about because we are able to show up as a much better version of ourselves as opposed to someone who is swimming in chaos and completely overwhelmed all the time. In fact, we're able to be a better partner, a better employee, a better parent, or whatever it is we need to be. And we're able to approach challenges from a grounded place. And believe me, this practice of dedicating some time per day for myself has totally changed my life. Number 6 is to eliminate background noise and distractions. When we're trying to focus or we feel that life is particularly overwhelming, the last thing that we need is extra noise. And I mean both literal noise and figurative noise. Now, when my life was completely chaotic, I had a horrible habit of having the TV on all the time in the background, no matter what I was doing. And most of the time, it was the news that was on. So I had this constant stream of negativity just seeping into me all hours of the day. And also, I was filling up any potential precious quiet moment that I had with pretty much complete garbage. I realized much later that if something is worth my time, it is also worth my attention. And if something is not worth our time or attention, it certainly does not deserve to be on because it's not adding any kind of value to our life at all. All it is doing is creating that chaos. It is creating that noise. And the same thing, of course, goes for social media, which is the platform that is designed to basically waste our time and keep us on the platform as long as possible. And I'm not saying that these aspects of our life can't be positive for us, but we have to limit them. We have to make sure that we are intentionally using them and that they are a positive and not a negative in our life. Because if we are just wasting time and forcing our brain to work to process all these random images that it is seeing, we are going to experience mental fatigue and we're not going to have the wherewithal to be able to accomplish the tasks that are actually necessary and have time for the things in our life that really do matter. Number 7 is to stop trying to multitask. Now, I know we think we're saving time when we do this, and I used to be extremely guilty of attempting to do this very, very often. But in reality, all we are doing is creating chaos because our brain cannot perform 2 tasks at the same time. All that is happening in reality is that we are switching quickly back and forth in between the 2 tasks, which of course does not enable us to really perform to our capacity. We're going to make a lot of mistakes because we're not really focused on anything. So what we can do instead that tends to create a lot less chaos is to simply intensely focus on what we are doing, the task at hand, and complete that task before we move on to the next one. Number 8 is to start saying no without guilt. Now, if you're in the habit of being a people pleaser, if you always put the needs of other people before yourself, and I'm not talking about dependents or children or anything like that, I just mean other people in your life, what's going to happen is that you are going to run out of time and energy to do the things that are important to you because you are making their life a priority over yours. And I know a lot of times we do this because we think that we are being nice, but a lot of times it has a lot of negative consequences. Now, many of us were conditioned to believe differently when we were growing up, but the fact of the matter is that when it comes to important things, it is not selfish to put our needs and our priorities first, because if we're not going to do it, nobody else is going to do it, and these things are never going to get done. We have to remember that we are the ones living our life, and therefore we do have to be the star of our own show, which does not mean that we want to slack on being a caregiver or other obligations in our life, but we do have to take care of ourselves. Now, I know for a lot of people, even thinking this way can create a lot of feelings of guilt, which is why I made a whole entire video all about people pleasing and learning how to say no. And I will go ahead and link that down in the description box below. But if we can start to learn that our needs do matter, we're going to find that our life becomes a lot less chaotic because we're making time and space for ourselves, which means the things that are important to us in our life are actually going to get done. Now, number 9 is to take breaks. We simply need to find time in our life to slow down, and taking breaks allows us to really recharge, refresh, to prevent exhaustion and reduce the amount of stress in our life. Now, by breaks, I mean taking little breaks throughout the day. We should be doing this pretty consistently. We don't want to just keep pushing on like a freight train. And we also need to be taking big breaks like vacations. We need to spend time doing things that are out of the ordinary. We need to get out of our very stressful environments. So many times when I tell people this, they really argue with me and say, I really don't have the time to go on vacation. Taking a vacation will actually really stress me out. But if we think about it, when we don't make time for these moments to recharge and relax, we're going to be heading into very dangerous territory because there's no way we're not going to end up getting burnt out. We can't just keep pushing and pushing forward. We've got to slow down and take breaks. It's also important that at least some of the time that we take these breaks alone. It does not mean that we do not love the people in our life, but it does mean that we do need time to ourselves to reflect, to recharge, to listen to our inner voice and have moments of pure tranquility. It can also be incredibly beneficial when we take these breaks to do something that is actually restorative. So that could mean maybe meditating or journaling or practicing yoga or getting outside for some fresh air or doing something artistic, when we can not only relax ourselves but also recharge ourselves at the same time. We're kind of getting the double benefit. And number 10 is to simplify our life if needed. Now, of course, we're always going to have obligations and we have to pay our bills and all of these other things in our life, but we have to remember that our well-being and our life satisfaction really also need to be priorities. That may mean that we may have to consider making even bigger changes in the future. So maybe moving somewhere that is less chaotic if this is something that is not getting rectified, or even changing careers. And I know this is not practical or feasible for everyone, everyone, but if it comes to the point where we realize that we've taken out all the distractions, we've done all that we can do we need to make bigger changes? If we come to this realization, then this is something that we do need to consider. In other words, if our life is not in alignment with the type of life that we would like to lead, then we may need to dig a little bit deeper and see what we can do in the future to make our life what we want it to be, because we deserve to be happy. We deserve to have a life that we love. And ultimately, we are the ones that are really creating our own life. You know, external factors can play a part in this sometimes, but we also play a part in this. We get to be in charge of our destiny. In many cases, however, we don't need to make big changes. We simply have to implement strategies like the ones we discussed today to reduce chaos and reduce overwhelm in our life, so we aren't completely stressed out and so that we can actually enjoy the life that we already have. So these are the 10 strategies that I have used to make my life feel a lot less chaotic, and I truly hope that you find them effective for you. Please don't forget to say hello in the comments, and as always, I truly hope you found today's video to be helpful and insightful. If you did, please like it, share it, and definitely become a subscriber if you are not one already. We absolutely want you to stay connected, and I hope the rest of your day is absolutely extraordinary.